Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. At this time, a quote from James Clear again. We love him, we love him.
Yeah.
He says, a simple rule for life that rarely fails. Optimize for enthusiasm. Make as many choices as you can that leave you feeling energetic and interested. Pay attention to when you have the urge to pursue or participate in something and do more of it. So, optimize for enthusiasm. And you know, as an engineer, I always ask for your optimization criterion. And what about enthusiasm? Peyton, what are you enthusiastic about these times?
Great question, and it's a cool prompt. What comes to my mind for me is I get really enthusiastic for solving complex, open-ended problems, coming up with good strategies, coming up with good approaches, figuring out, doing a bunch of research on how something has been solved by others successfully, and kind of picking and choosing and trying to find the best way to put together a solution to this whatever circumstance that I'm working on. So that's an example for me that comes up. And this intention to optimize for enthusiasm is interesting. You could take this in multiple ways, and maybe you can take this in some ways that are wise and some ways that are unwise. But the way that I think this really resonates with me, that it can be really practical, is along a philosophy of energy management, or manage your energy, not your time, like Scott Adams says. And what's true that we can see in our own experience is that some things we do, and they're activities that give us energy as we do them. And there's other things that we do that feel like they drain us of so much energy. And we can pay attention to that. And it's notable that a lot of the things that give us energy are no less valuable than the things that take away our energy. And sometimes they can be even more valuable. And we can experience this perfect fit of our interests and our energetic alignment and what we're good at and what the world needs in certain cases. If we look for it, maybe we improve some skills and we can find those niches for ourselves over time. And this is how we can get these circumstances where we're doing something that feels like play to us but looks like work to others. And this is the zone where we can experience are truly giving our gifts and truly providing the most value that we can to our situations, if we can find the right circumstances to match up with our own inner desire, or cultivate the right skill set and fit with what we do. And this can be a place where we can have our cake and eat it too. A lot of times we can create the most value while we are actually enjoying what we're doing, while we are experiencing flow. And because we are experiencing flow by its very nature, we're going to be at the frontier of what we're capable of. And so these are growth-inducing workflows that we experience when we're finding this optimum balance, this optimum energetic flywheel, so to speak. And enthusiasm is, I would say, for all of that, it's not necessarily that it must be there in the same way at all times, or it doesn't always look the same, et cetera, but it's a signal that we can pay attention for and look out for. It's a signal that this is something that can be energy giving to us, even though it might be value creating, even though it might also be growth giving, it might also be prosperity giving, it might also be giving of our gifts to others. But the enthusiasm can come too. It doesn't have to be that we either love what we do and it's worthless, or we hate what we do and it's valuable. Actually, the secret sauce, the middle of the Venn diagram, or the Tootsie Roll at the center of the Tootsie Pop, it really is trying to find this zone where we can love what we do, and where this can be the place where we can give our gifts and provide the best value to the world. How do you think about finding that zone? How do we look for it? What does it take to discover or encounter or cultivate that? And then once we find it, how can we try to apply it to multiple places in our lives?
Oh, great points you make there about work and play. And how do we find this zone of enthusiasm and doing what we are enthusiastic about? Well, first is we have to get to know ourselves better, and not in terms of, okay, what we like to do or what we'd like to be in terms of fulfilling the expectations of others, but in terms of what we really enjoy doing. And therefore, we have to experiment, and through this experimentation, get to know ourselves better. And therefore, we have to take time out of it to deliberately try out something new and to deliberately let the flywheel turn faster with the stuff we already know, which we enjoy doing. So, for example, if you like to play an instrument, then just take out time for yourself to train a little, to train a new song, whatever. If you don't know what to do and what you like yet, then try out different stuff you think about sometimes, or try out stuff which you in the past enjoyed very much as a child, for example. This is a big hint to the core of your being as a child. What did you enjoy doing there? And how can you put that into experiments and frame that into tiny activities which you can pursue today even? For me, for example, as a child, I hang around the fields a lot of time, and I looked for four-leaved clovers. And what I found is not only four-leaved clovers, but also many three-leaved clovers for sure, two-leaved clovers sometimes, and sometimes also five-leaved, six-leaved, and two times in my life I found a clover which has seven leaves.
Wow.
And what I can derive from that is that I enjoy being around nature very much. So my tiny experiments is okay. What might it look like being in the forest? What might it look like being in the lake? What might it look like being on the lake? What might it look like being in the mountains? And so on. You can just derive from these activities you once knew you enjoyed to activities you know you could enjoy, and then try it out and then see, oh, I really like snorkeling. I like snorkeling so much that I do it now nearly every day. So I just do it. And therefore, this is what drives my enthusiasm. And then with this enthusiasm, as you said, you put the flywheel to work. You put in some energy to go to a place to enjoy something, but it also gives you energy back. It doesn't drain your energy, it is a source of energy. You generate energy with it. So, what if these things you are enthusiastic about are generators of energy, are like tiny power plants in your life? And if you view it from this perspective, then this is a totally different thing to look upon your life and yourself. So if you could place power plants in your life, you would never run out of energy, of personal energy you could give your loved ones, of energy you have for creative projects and so on. So why not just reframe your life in terms of, okay, I have to fulfill obligations to society, or in terms of, okay, I now fulfill the purpose of my being myself. And what I believe is that the happiest people, they know who they are, and then they align their life and their activities to what they know about themselves. So these people are the happiest because they put power plans into their life and pursue activities which generate enthusiasm and energy for themselves, and therefore are happier than other people who try to fulfill expectations, who try to become something because of prestige, or who try to gain status and so on, and play these games. So Peyton, how does this reframe feel to you?
It's good, and it makes me think of the power plant within us too. So there's these things that we can plant in our lives. We can cultivate our environment to give us energy, absolutely. Our relationships and the humans in our lives being a key component of that, of course. And the other aspect of this in cultivating, finding enthusiasm is our own dopamine system. And speaking from experience here, I almost never experienced enthusiasm on 4 hours of sleep. I don't think I've ever experienced enthusiasm when I had a hangover. I don't think I ever experienced enthusiasm when I'm super sick and just exhausted. And no matter if I'm doing the things that I would otherwise be capable of being enthusiastic about. So one piece of this is our dopamine system. This is a core part of the machinery that if something is not giving us a dopamine response, we very likely are not going to feel this drive to want for more, this energy that we want to go get or fulfill or do more and more and more of this thing. And counterintuitively, the way that we spend the other hours in our lives outside of our work has a lot to do with the dopamine system that we experience while we're working. And so I noticed, for example, a few years ago, I would work and then I would go to take a bathroom break and I would open up my phone and be on social media or phone dopamine traps. And then the 20 minutes after that break was wasted if I had looked at social media because my dopamine system was actually sapped from just bursting it with these stimuli. So like, whoa, actually I can't be doing things that are cheap dopamine or fake dopamine when I'm at work if I want to actually get something done afterwards. Same with how we spend our personal life, what we do to spike our dopamine artificially. This can actually make our dopamine responses less correlated to the stuff that we actually want to use our dopamine for. Stuff that can enable us to work harder, to work further, to get this enthusiasm, to get this renewable energy. So this dopamine system intentionality and management is super key to experiencing enthusiasm that then we can follow. And the next step is once we feel enthusiasm, once we are doing things out there and we notice what gives us energy, there is a mindset now of following. We can't force ourselves to be curious about something. We can't force ourselves to be super enthusiastic about something. But we can absolutely have that come up and then we can either capitalize on it, or we can discard it by just forcing ourselves onto the next thing. So if I'm super enthusiastic, I'm in flow about what I'm doing, I'm getting all the way into this, I'm doing amazing work, I don't want my phone to just interrupt me halfway through. I get cut off and then I get forced to just drop that and go do something else. I don't want to start this flow and then when I'm 10 minutes into it, even though I'm really getting into the zone and it's going great, I don't want to force myself to cut this off so I can task switch and go do something else. Certainly don't want to multitask. And so the following posture that we can have toward this is quite useful. We don't actually get to dictate and force and control and put in a box and say, I will be enthusiastic from 10:15 until 12:15 and this will be this and this. It's more of a system that we're a part with. It all flows. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it goes. But when we see when it comes, we follow when it comes. We make the most of it when it comes. This is a lot of times how we can experience the best benefit from these things, these flow states, these absorbed flows, and the great experiences and better creativity, better quality outputs that come from following what our intuition and our whole system is drawing us toward. How do you find those things and what signals do you pay attention to and what do you do to try to intentionally follow that when it strikes?
Well, you know if you see it. It's like the judge who needed to judge whether one movie which was created is like pornography, and he said, I know it when I see it, and this is it, yes. So you have to trust yourself again. You know it when you see it, you know it when you see that you're enthusiastic about something. Another signal might be that you crack a smile, that you feel more energetic afterwards, that you spark with ideas, that you want to do it again. It's sometimes it's a trap, you know, because the 10,000 people behind our phone screen who are getting paid to keep us glued to the phone screen in terms of social media apps and dopamine traps like games or whatever, they also try to utilize that system so it's not make use of the system so it's not reliable to just do what you know feels good. It has to feel good in a more long-term sense. If it feels good immediately, probably it's a trap. If it feels good after a while, probably it's better. You feel that after a good workout. Your body feels activated and your whole system is used but is flowing. So you feel this investment of energy you had to push through first, it has to feel a little hard first, and after that you gain the momentum and the reward afterwards with a time delay. So I guess this is the secret sauce signal if you want to fine tune your filter, which signals you want to listen to. How to make it more likely? As you said, it's the environment you have to prepare. Also, your phone, maybe hack back, like put a mute on the social media apps in a certain kind of time frame or in a certain kind of usage pattern. And with your environment which you create, you also make it more likely that you stay in the zone and don't get disrupted by very, very cheap dopamine, which potentially disrupts a whole productive energy flow, which could go into your product and compound, which could make your flywheel move faster. But you choose to interrupt it because you couldn't wait just to make like this and pull the lever of the one-armed bandit again, just to see behind the screen if you triggered the uncertainty one-arm bandit trigger. Yeah, so hacking back and trying to shape your environment is what to do, and what to look for is the stuff which has effort in it but feels very good after the effort. What do you think, Peyton?
I agree. The environment makes such a big difference. Our interruptions, our focus, our ability to tap into flow, even the light in our environment, and the other aspects make a huge difference. One thing that's, once again, varied, but just a tactic that I find so useful with flow, creativity, exploration, and enthusiasm is movement during the day. Am I walking? Am I moving my body? Am I walking on calls? Am I walking while I'm thinking? And even now we can collaborate with AI to solve difficult and complex problems while we walk, while we move our body, by using audio, by being creative with how we move back and forth between tasks. And so I would say that each person's different in how they work, how their mind works, how their body works, how their dopamine system works, but just experimenting and paying attention, noticing what works, noticing what robs our energy is key. And this is where the meta skill of awareness really does come in. It always seems to come in with everything, but here is no different, because if we have awareness, we can see the cause and effect. We can see that, oh, what I was doing 10 minutes ago has led to the very causes and conditions of my mind in this moment. What I'm working on right now is causing me to feel amazing, or I'm feeling enthusiasm. It's time to follow that. It is not time to task switch and cut that off and go to something else while this is here. And so awareness is key, and paying attention and prizing and realizing that energy management is a core skill, a core meta skill that cashes in for so much. Let's be intentional about it. Let's be thoughtful about it. Let's gradually improve over time our capacity to manage our own energy, our capacity to unleash our life force on where it can generate the most value in our lives and in the lives of others. And awareness is a foundation of actually getting a little bit 1% better at that every day by noticing what works and doing more of that, noticing what doesn't work and doing a little bit less of that. And importantly, recognizing in the moment before we choose something, if it's something that's not going to work and if that's not worth it to us. This is another area that awareness comes in, is when I pull out my phone and I've already typed in x.com before it loads. If I have some awareness, I might see that little loading bar at the top, and in that liminal moment, oh, X, like maybe now's not the time for this subconscious habit. Maybe awareness needs to step in and I need to switch my patterns, because I'm recognizing that this is one of those times when I'm creating a cause that's going to lead to an effect that's not what serves me right now. And so this is like with many things, it does come back to awareness as far as our capacity to continually get a little better with traction over time in energy management, just like 1,000 other things.
Yeah, what I recognize in my own life with that is that awareness is the key, and you cannot expect it to compound and compound and compound if you sometimes interrupt it. So with me, I interrupted too often. So that's why I try to create the environment in such a way that I do not have to utilize awareness
Yeah,
because
yes.
I'm having like a voluntary force function, putting myself into the desired states. Um, I think these voluntary force functions, if you want to name these, if you hack back and if you create your environment, if you shape it so that you don't have distractions in it, I guess these are more valuable in the long run because it's also going back to James Clear's saying that in the long run it's all about the systems. It's um, you don't fall, you don't rise to the level of your expectations. You fall down to the levels of your systems, and so it's important to be aware and use this awareness in terms of how does your environment even look like and what is the likelihood of you doing certain kinds of habits, and then from that derive the action to reshape your environment accordingly. That's why I will download and buy an app which is called something like Focus Now or something, which specifically has the ability to block apps in a certain kind of time frame, in a certain kind of usage pattern, and so much more than the built-in digital balance of the phones offer. Because what I found is, due to the digital balance in my phone, I utilized it last week until now. It helped so much not to get distracted because due to the system, it is when I clicked on the app, uh, which was distracting me, it was gray and it said, "Oh, you don't want to use it." I said, "Aha, yes, true. That's the trigger within me, you know." So I didn't use it in that time. But I believe there's also the ability to hack back even more sophisticatedly, and that's what I experiment with next,
Yeah.
shaping the environment so that the awareness is free for creating stuff which means something to me.
And the last point that I'll raise about this, on a different note, looking and optimizing for enthusiasm, recognizing that if something gives us energy while we do it, then we may be able to do more of it, even better, at a lower cost, is actually true. And it can be largely fit based. Fortunately, all 8 billion of us humans seem to be a lot different than each other. And so it doesn't have to be a big sacrifice, actually, to pick something that we're enthusiastic about to spend our energy in. Of course, it's not going to be black and white. I'll never do a tax return again. That would be nice, but that's not the reality either. But at the same time, there's kind of an implicit, I would say, scarcity mindset that we might have around the trade-offs that we must pay if we do something that we like rather than don't like. And it could be that actually in the past, these were valid sort of common sense knowledge in the sense that, okay, the world needs a bunch of accountants and it sucks to be an accountant. And so the world's always going to need more accountants to do accounting because it's boring. And so if you want something safe, you've got to go do something boring. Not that that's exactly how it used to work 20 years ago, but that was generally it. People that were trying to look out for you would tell you, don't study art history, go study accounting or engineering or one of these safer paths, so to speak. And that was probably good advice when you're optimizing for certain things 20 years ago. When you're optimizing for job stability 20 years ago, fine. Now we are actually in a different era. And so now the one who's feeling like they're playing when they're actually going and doing something that's value creating and looks like work to others, that is a huge advantage, actually. And an example in my own life is 4 years ago, I was looking for a business to buy, and I had the mindset of, I'm an entrepreneur, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to enjoy being an entrepreneur, whatever I'm entrepreneuring on. And lo and behold, I picked something that was like the worst possible fit for my energy. I like long creative flow, and this was the most reactive thing possible. I like to solve problems with my mind, but I now had to learn these trades with my hands. I like to come up and orchestrate big systems, but this actually required me to always be in the weeds and to micromanage humans. And it was the worst fit for my energy, which was actually, at the time, it was really good for growth. And so I'll kind of set that aside and say that you can do stuff that you hate that is anti-energy, but it actually might be what you need to grow. So that's valid. At the same time, if I was optimizing for success in business, it would have been actually way more advantageous for me to do something that was naturally aligned with how I like to work, that was naturally aligned with what gives me energy, that was naturally aligned with what I'm enthusiastic about, what I'm passionate about, what I'm curious about. And it wouldn't have had to have come at an economic cost. In fact, a lot of times you can just pick the game that's the right fit for you, that's not the right fit for other people. And if you find that right fit and you solve for what is a fit, what's aligned, and what gives you energy, you can run so much more sustainably for so much longer because it's a renewable energy machine. This is flywheel that, like, you need the activation energy, but it gives you energy back. You can do more of it, and you can sustain a much faster pace for much longer. You can create more value, and you can play longer term games, which is when it has the opportunity to compound more and more and more. Especially now, the world does not have any longer, and never will again, a shortage of people doing menial and boring data entry or menial and boring white collar work. This sort of just execute tasks that are kind of that are fairly, I would say, tedious or repetitive. This is not in demand anymore, and probably is not going to be. There's no shortage of this from now on. And so finding that thing that you can be interested in, that you're enthusiastic about, and because you're enthusiastic about it, you can push the frontier. You can discover things new. You're tinkering and you're native in whatever you're in because it's something that you genuinely love, that you want to find out the next thing. You want to ask that next question. You're curious about it. You actually will, a lot of times, especially if you're intentional about finding something that's truly a fit, but also that the world really needs, you can a lot of times have your cake and eat it too on these things. You can have this this way that you can enjoy what you're doing and that it actually gets you further. And so this is the center of that Venn diagram that is good for us to search for on the big picture. What are the paths that we take, as well as even within the games that we're playing. Even if we're already committed to a game, how can we be playing sub-games that are aligned in this way, that we can go further, that we can sustain it more, and then we can enjoy it more along the way and truly give our best gifts because of all of that. This is actually a wise intention and something that's more and more practical by the year. All right.
Try to move a little
And
bit more.
with that
Hack
said,
back.
my intention this week is to bring some good awareness to what's giving me energy, what is not. That not only do I try to play the right big picture games, but also I look at what I'm doing within the games that I'm playing. And
into our life,
and
which
with that in
generate more
mind,
energy.
try